A 16-year-old girl disappears in New Jersey. 6 weeks later, a dog shows up at an apartment complex with a human arm. That's not even the weirdest part of this story. Once they find her body on a cliff named Devil's Teeth, the town doesn't just ask who killed her. They start asking if witches did it. In print on the front page. Girl got sacrificed in a witch ritual? Witch be crazy. But honestly, a town with no answers might be scarier. This is the case of Jeannette DePalma. A real girl died and nobody was ever arrested, and instead of a clean investigation, the town came up with folklore. 50 years later, people are still arguing about the pentagrams instead of who had access to the quarry. That's the tragedy that's sitting under all this witch panic. So we're doing this properly. What's confirmed, what people claimed, where the witch story came from, and whether 50 years of rumors buried the case underneath it. Not witches killed a teenager, something dumber and sadder than that. How about we meet her first? Jeannette DePalma was 16 years old, living on Clearview Road in Springfield Township. Quiet, comfortable, tree-lined. The kind of suburb where you can see the Manhattan skyline on a clear day. Religious family, active in her church. Reportedly planning on Bible college. On the afternoon of August 7th, 1972, she told her mother she was going to go visit a friend. Most accounts say she planned on taking a train. Other accounts suggested she may have gone hitchhiking instead. And if that's true, it matters, because that puts her in a car with strangers that a train platform never would. She never made it. She never came home. Her parents filed a missing persons report the next day. It's worth saying that back in 1972, hitchhiking didn't have the same negative connotations it has today. It wasn't so reckless for a teenager to go hitchhiking back then. A lot of teenagers actually did it before they had a car, before cell phone, before parents could text, "Hey, are you alive? Did New Jersey eat you?" That normalcy is what makes this thing so unsettling. This wasn't a girl doing something bizarre for that era. It was just an ordinary afternoon that stopped being ordinary between leaving the house and never arriving to her destination. Then nothing. No sightings, no notes, no body. 6 weeks of family just waiting. Springfield wasn't the setting you'd expect for this. Low crime, upper middle class. The kind of place where a missing teenager was a solvable Tuesday, not a 50-year mystery. Nice towns hate not having answers. So eventually, somebody hands them one. Earned or not. And notice what's missing in this part of the story. No monster, no ritual, no coven. Just a girl who said she was going to go visit her friend and never arrived. Everything weird comes later. It gets bolted on afterwards. September 19th, 1972. A dog near the Boltis Rolls Gardens apartments brings its owner back a badly decomposed human forearm. Nobody asked for that. Police track it back to the old Houdaille Quarry, wedged between a prestigious golf course and a big county nature reserve. Which that is its own weird sentence before the nature part. A dog just walking around delivering evidence like a furry little detective. A search party climbs a rock formation that the locals have been calling Devil's Teeth for decades. That nickname predates Jeannette's death, which matters because later on people thought that the name had something to do with her death. It's not. It's just New Jersey naming a rock like it was trying to be a haunted attraction. But up there they find the rest of Jeannette. Not in remote wilderness, not in some weird cursed place at the end of the earth. A forgotten strip of overgrown land, boxed in by a golf course, nature reserve, and later a highway. Ordinary suburban leftovers wearing a horror movie name. Her body was too decomposed for an ordinary autopsy. She was later identified through dental records. X-rays ruled out bullet wound, broken bones, blunt trauma. No drug paraphernalia was ever found on scene. The coroner reportedly suspected strangulation, and that suspicion helped push the case towards suspected homicide. Not proof, suspicion. That is the forensic foundation that this case has stood on for over 50 years. Oh, and there was an unusual amount of lead in her remains. Never explained. Just sitting there in the file like the case forgot to close a tab. The 1973 crime lab report didn't show up in a superhero cape either. They tested her clothing and soil, compared it to hairs found nearby, and basically found almost nothing useful. No foreign hairs, any staining was way too degraded for blood or semen test. This is the part of the case that drives me nuts. The paperwork doesn't walk in in with any answers. It walks in with a weird little freaking geek bar and says, "Good luck, idiot." No bullet wounds, no fracture, no blunt trauma, no useful hair evidence, no confirmed cause of death. Just a big old giant stack of things that they ruled out and a big empty spot of where the answer should be. Police also looked early into a homeless man that lived near the quarry. Locals called him Red. He was a caddy over at the golf course next door. Dead end. So, a teenage girl vanishes, is found dead weeks later at a spot nicknamed after Satan, and the actual file rules out more than it can actually explain. That's pretty strange on its own. It didn't need any help. It got help anyway. And then the town hit the witchcraft button like it owed it money. Witnesses at the scene described a coffin-shaped perimeter of fallen branches and logs with small wooden crosses placed near her. That comes from people who were actively standing there back in 1972. That's the seed. From that seed, the story went feral. Some residents started reclaiming, in later retellings, that she had been found on a literal pentagram, surrounded by mutilated animals. Police denied that specific detail early and often. Didn't matter. Once pentagram gets into a small town rumor mill, that rumor mill does not issue correction. Witches don't file paperwork. One newspaper actually ran a hand-drawn diagram of the scene, crosses and all, credited to an artist named G. Owens. A drawing became evidence of public imagination. That's how folklore starts, and it wears a fake freaking badge. And look at the actual headline language, because this is where the media framing does real damage. Not local teen's death remains unexplained. Not police investigates possible homicide. Nope. Girl sacrificed from witch ritual. Which one? That is not a headline. That's a panic grenade with punctuation. By the third repetition at the mailbox, the freaking question mark probably disappeared. Here's the detail almost nobody brings up. Jeannette, by accounts from her own family, was devoutly religious. She was planning on Bible college, active in the church. So local papers took a religious teenager's unsolved death and spun it into a satanic sacrifice story. The rumor didn't just misread the evidence, it misread the girl. The neighborhood wasn't helping either. 10 months earlier, just a couple miles away in Westfield, John List murdered his entire family. He later said part of his reasoning involved believing his daughter was a part of an occult. So the region was already primed, already spooked, already looking for the devil in any unexplained death case. Investigators found zero links between the cases, but the public didn't need one. Proximity was close enough. New Jersey was all up in that Salem cosplay. Then it escalated. Around the same time, Union County Park Police reported finding candles, a bowl of blood, feathers, and pigeons with their necks snapped in Watchung Reservation, less than 2 miles away. That report is real. Whether it connects to Jeannette is a completely different question that nobody ever answered. But try explaining separate question to a town that already believes that it lives next door to a coven. And then, my personal favorite, a 1972 local paper reported investigators may have brought an actual self-identified witch out to the discovery site to see whether it looked occult or not. A police department consulting a witch during a homicide investigation. Normal evidence had to fight a freaking ghost outside in the parking lot, and the ghost won. I would have loved to have seen that budget meeting. Hey, we got the coroner, the crime lab, and hey, Gary, did you bring the witch? That is not confirmed procedure. It is a reported claim, but the fact that it was reported at all tells you how far off the rails this whole thing was. The rumor mill wasn't running on facts anymore. It was chewing through the drywall. Witchcraft implemented in DePalma murder wasn't a caption. It was a diagnosis that the entire county gave itself. And the fear stuck around. Mark Morin, the weird New Jersey editor who spent years investigating, has said that even 20 years later, people in the area were still reluctant to talk. Depending on who you ask, theories pointed at biker gangs, Satanists, even a cop. Maybe it was a biker cop Satanist. Most people stayed quiet out of fear of retribution, not because they had nothing to say. That forest has bad vibes and no snacks. If you guys are enjoying watching an entire township throw its logic into a wood chipper, hit like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on which toe is your favorite toe. Tony needs validation and I need a nap. Now comes the part where the ghost story gets dragged into fluorescent lighting. For decades, Springfield police said that Jeannette's case file had been destroyed in flooding from Hurricane Floyd back in 1999. Official line? Nothing to see. Weird New Jersey's Mark Mullen and Jesse Polak, who eventually wrote Death on the Devil's Teeth, kept hitting the same wall. Then they filed the Right Records request. Turns out the file was actually never gone. They got the case documents and eventually the original crime scene photographs. And this is the part that rearranges the entire case. When they reviewed the photos, the dramatic ritual setup people had described did not appear to be there. No clear stick crosses, no halo of stones, no altar, no carved tree. The most cinematic, most repeated details of the legend, the one that launched 50 years of witchcraft headlines, looked a lot more like ordinary forest debris, panic, and people trying to make sense of something so horrifying. By 2024, the same researchers who chased that occult angle for years said that they were confident that no occult activity was involved in the causing of her death. So the ghost story got fact-checked and lost. That does not mean it's a clean hoax. Something made of branches was reportedly there. Maybe it was deliberate. Maybe it was just natural debris overread by the search party. Maybe it was something in between. Nobody living can say for certain anymore. That's the actual mystery. Not was it witches. It's whether we could trust anything that anybody remembers seeing at all. Somebody whispered witchcraft back in 1972, and the entire county opened up the broom closet and never really closed it. That's the legacy. Not a coven, a reflex. 50 years of headlines and photographs just didn't back up the story people kept saying. There's a human cost to all this myth-making too. Ed Salzano, a New Jersey advocate close to Jeannette's late nephew, who now runs a memorial page for her case, has pushed back on retellings that have painted her as a drug-involved teen who overdosed in the woods. That version is a little more opposite of the ritual sacrifice legend, but it has the same problem. It tries to solve a real person with a shortcut. There's also an informal effort called Justice to Jeannette DePalma, made up of people still trying to get the old case file treated seriously decades later. 50 years of headlines and book deals got booked up on a freaking pentagram police never confirmed. Meanwhile, people who actually cared about Jeannette have been trying to get the drama backed off. Guess which one got more effort and attention? The legend didn't just survive. It became the thing that most people remember. The Jersey Witch Hunt. A real teenage girl's unsolved death turned into a regional folklore with a title card. That's how the case stopped being just a case and became a local legend. While all of that was happening, the headlines, the witch consultant, the animal reports 2 miles away, the actual leads got surprisingly little attention. That's a part of the story that never trends. Police looked early at an ex-boyfriend, the quarry's night watchman, and read the man living nearby the quarry. None of it produced out an arrest. The case went cold and mostly stayed out of the public for decades. Then, in the spring of 2021, something genuinely new happened. Richard Cottingham, a convicted serial killer known as the Torso Killer, tied to multiple homicides across New Jersey and New York, began writing letters to author Jesse Polak. In those letters, he may have suggested that he picked up Jeannette while she was hitchhiking and killed her. Polak forwarded that correspondence with the Union County Prosecutor's Office. Cottingham reportedly said that he would talk to the investigators directly. Let's be exact about what that is and what that isn't. It is a claim from a convicted killer forwarded through an author to a prosecutor's office, not a courtroom confession. Cottingham has not been charged in Jeannette's death, but a man with that history voluntarily pointing out a specific unresolved 1972 case is not nothing. It may be one of the most substantial leads the case has ever produced throughout all the years, and it surfaced almost by accident decades after the witchcraft theory sucked up all the oxygen in the room. Others have also floated other possible connections to other unsolved cases, deaths, and young women in the same general area and era. Those links are also not proven, and nobody has been charged in the connection with them either. It would be irresponsible to present this as a confirmed serial case. But that's the exact point. Worth the second look was never the energy on this case. The energy went to a rock formation's nickname for the past 50 years. So why did this case stay unsolved? It's partly because 1972 forensic science genuinely couldn't do much, especially with remains that had been sitting outside for 6 weeks. There was no confirmed cause of death. That is a real structural reason cases go cold. Witches or no witches. If Jeannette disappeared today, DNA evidence alone might answer questions this case has been stuck on since Nixon was in office. Jeannette had the misfortune of vanishing before science could catch up to her. But it's hard to look at 50 years of this story and not notice how much energy got put into the wrong question. The town didn't spend a decade asking, who picked her up that day? It spent decades asking, was it a coven? One question had actual leads. An ex-boyfriend, a watchman, a man near the quarry, and eventually a documented serial killer writing letters. The other question had a scary rock nickname and a weird headline with a question mark. The rumor didn't just fail to help. It may have made it harder to see by handing the community a story more satisfying than we don't know. And satisfying stories don't need a follow-up. They just need retelling. There's also the administrative failure underneath it all. For nearly 2 decades, the official word was that the file was gone, flooded, destroyed in the 1999 casualty. That closed doors for independent researchers and for the family. It took private citizens, a magazine editor, and a co-author, not a detective or a prosecutor, filing records requests to prove that the file survived the whole time. Nobody official forced that door open. 2 guys running a magazine about weird New Jersey history did it instead. For decades, the real paperwork sat in the background while the witchcraft version got retold for free. No records request necessary. A 16-year-old girl left her house one August afternoon in 1972 and never made it back. No cause of death was ever confirmed. No one was ever charged. And the most dramatic details of the legend don't hold up against the actual photographs. Maybe the scariest part of this wasn't ever the witches. Maybe it's that a real girl died. The case never got a clean answer. And the loudest story, not the truest one, is the one that survived. Jeannette wasn't a plot device for a rock formation with a scary name. She was a real person. And if this case ever gets solved, it won't be because somebody finally found the right pentagram. It'll be because somebody finally took the paperwork as seriously as the town took the rumors. I still don't trust the woods. Or New Jersey. Thank you.